Danish, you want to say something on this?
Yes, I want to jump in now. I think I was not audible.
Yeah.
Just having my background in the medical device industry, um, I would like to add whatever Mr. Khan has just elaborated. Um, Medical device industry is one of the highly regulated industry in the world. That is the reason because it's regulated. It has something to do with human health. So you have actually in this industry a merger of different professions. You have clinicians, you have medical device experts, you have engineers, you have clinicians, you have different professions who are actually affected or related to this industry. That's why it is regulated in a different way. Um, we have the devices which are electromechanical, and nowadays we have digital companion devices which are also connected to our mobile devices. It has a complex technology, um, which is actually somehow also related to manufacturing of complex parts. Like if you think about the structural complexity, I am going to give you some example of a recent case, which is in which there is one company in Europe. It's called Nexperia, which is, however, one of the leading manufacturer of chips in Europe. It has been acquired by a Chinese company, and unfortunately, this acquisition was blocked by the Dutch government, and now we have a supply chain, I would say, supply chain nightmare in Europe as far as those chips are concerned. Same goes for medical device. I have been analyzing the supply chain of our electromechanical device, which was inhaler, a nebulizer. Um, so the time to market or the development time of of a medical device is relatively long. That has the downside that if you have a Bluetooth chip, for example, or an NFC chip, which is going to be used in the final device, the time the device is through the all the certification processes, the chip is already end of life. So so there are very much different challenges if you compare this with automotive or other industries, because those other industries are big, so they have much higher volume than the medical devices. They can actually make sure that their supply chain or their production um, is secure for the next 10 years until they align with the manufacturer of those semiconductors, for example, that they make sure that the chip will be supplied for the next 10 years or so. Yeah. Unfortunately, this is all the planning. So if there is some political issues going on, that is out of everyone's control. So we also mentioned that there are some regulatory issues or geopolitical issues that you cannot that out of the control of a manufacturer or the supplier. But on the other side, yeah, medical device is something which very special, in which you cannot move so fast as the automotive. That is one of the reason that it has an special place in the challenges, or the supply chain challenges are much more than the automotive. Similarly, the product complexity, I would say it's also uh, much higher because you have a factor which called sterility. Many device parts or device components needs to be sterile. Um, I would quote one example, like we have an inhaler, and in this inhaler we have a specialized material which comes into contact with human body, or I would say mouth, or your inhaler, or you inhale the air which is coming through that component or this material. So this is a very specialized material. You cannot, for example, we had a struggle, for example, this material is manufactured or somewhere in America or Europe. I won't name the material. Uh, so Unfortunately, our molding company is China at this time. It was a nightmare to supply this manufacturing material from US directly to China. So we always had to think about how to do this. I mean, political issues are always there, which are um, making it the supply chain more complex. And product complexity is also there. I mean, we cannot have a component from the regulatory point of view, from the patient point of view, which is not safe for human use. So we had to have this material. So we are in a situation where we cannot have alternative suppliers. There are only a couple of suppliers for that specific material. The only option you have left that you, at the time of designing the equipment or the you look for the alternative materials, but with a comparable safety profile. So if you invest, for example, 100,000 euros for the biocompatibility testing, there are standards, there are specific standards which are completely different. So there are biocompatibility standards which are generic, and then you have biocompatibility standards which are very much specific to the inhalers. You have to be compliant to these standards. So either you get a novel material which is really available somewhere in Europe or somewhere in China, but then you have to invest upfront 100,000 euros to have the chemical composition or the safety of that material for human use. So, I mean, you cannot get away with those costs. Either you invest upfront if you get a new material with a better supply chain, or you go for a material which is already proven for human use for a specific application, and you just go for it. At the end of the day, it is the responsibility of the manufacturer to have the respective biocompatibility testing. Either you give it by lab testing, in vivo, in vitro, or whatsoever. Um, so that is one of the reasons the development cost of a medical device is much higher than the standard products in the market, like in automotive, cars, and so on. They also, because they are well established, they don't have the requirements for human safety or patient safety. Um, yeah, you can
Yeah.
move
So
ahead.
I would like just to add in it, Danish, if you will. So that's where the vendor partnership becomes very important. Vendors in those areas of manufacturing, like pharmaceuticals, like you mentioned, Danish, vendor contribution from the very beginning, at the very outset, at the stage of product development is critical. That's where you will see what vendors are available. And,
Yeah,
and so in the future, you're not stuck with one option because these are highly regulated industries, and any change will require a long drawn process to implement the change. So that's why vendor partnership from a supply chain perspective is critical at the very onset when you're doing product development. That's the time when you have to build the options into the license, so you have the ability to pick and choose between. Otherwise, you're stuck with one vendor, and then sometimes prices go up, and you can't do much about it because there is no option. If you do try to expand your vendor base, the first bottleneck is going back to change the license. And like you said, the cost of changing license element can be very high.
can be very high. Yeah.